to the latest episode of Trojans Wired, the podcast, which is an in-house production of the website Trojans Wire. We are part of the College Wire Network. It's our WNBA check-in show with USC women's basketball analyst Cece Clay, and Cece has a lot going on at her YouTube and her Substack, and some new things coming up, and she's going to be promoting them. We always do that near the end of the show, so a lot to check out. You know, if you want to just take these opening minutes to say, "Hey, what's Cece Clay up to?" Yeah, go to her YouTube channel and then look up what she has going while you listen to our podcast. Make sure you're keeping up with the latest from CC Clay. But it's our WNBA check-in show, and CC, as we look at the power structure in the WNBA, no question it's the Liberty and the Lynx, last year's finalists at 1 and 2. But then the Atlanta Dream and the Phoenix Mercury really making some early season statements. Those are two highly intriguing stories, and certainly not stories that everyone was expecting in the W at the start of the season.
Yeah, I think on our last pod, I did mention Carl Sonesco, and to one of the teams to look out for would be Atlanta because of the way he ran his offense down at Florida Gulf Coast, and he's doing the same in Atlanta. And their offense is so free and so open, and they're playing together. And Alicia Gray is just having a phenomenal year. She's to me should be a candidate for MVP because she's just playing so well. And I've always liked her game anyway. She's one of those players that go unnoticed sometimes when she should be getting noticed more. So yeah, I'm really, really, really excited to see how far Atlanta can go. And then with Phoenix, nobody thought Phoenix was going to do anything this year, and they're really, really, really surprising some people with what they got. And right now, they have people that are hurt. Natasha Mack is hurt, and Alyssa Thomas is hurt, and they're still pulling out wins. So kudos to Phoenix for what they're doing. Just fun to watch. I actually did watch the WNBA yesterday. I watched every game, and that's not like me to watch every WNBA game, but I was just so impressed with the style of play and the pace of play of that game and the way they move the ball, all the teams. So, but yeah, we can talk about that later on.
It was not, hey, I'm always criticizing the WNBA when the scheduling's bad. Sunday was a lot better. There was a noon game, there were two 3 o'clock games, and there was a 5:30 game. Didn't have three games on at the same time. So that's an improvement. Doesn't mean it's consistently an improvement, but better, much
Yeah.
closer to what we want, and enabled you and other WNBA fans to see more of the product. It's just such a simple thing, and when they get it right, it's really nice to see happen. Let's dig a little deeper with the Atlanta Dream because one thing you said on a recent show was the Seattle Storm. They Seattle Storm, such an exasperating team. They should be good. You see the ingredients, you see the lineups on paper. The Dream were down big to the Storm several days ago. They just swamped them in the second half, and then the Storm lose to the Aces, and both of those games were at home. So on the flip side of Atlanta really putting the pieces together, you have the Storm not putting the pieces together. But that Dream Storm game, tale of two halves: Seattle first half, Atlanta second half. Any kind of major takeaways in terms of what you see from those two teams and kind of why Atlanta's success, is such a notable story in the first part of this season? How did that Storm game kind of magnify your evolving sense of, Atlanta being able to put things together early on?
Yeah, I think I need to I think I'm hexing these teams because I think in last week's podcast I said, Seattle Storm's going to be really good here come mid-season, and then they go out and lose two games in a row to formidable teams, though. I mean, um, like I said, Atlanta just came and put it to them. They're younger, yeah, and I just think that Seattle, they just got to find their way. You're right; they have all the pieces, and I really think they're going to be a really, really good team. But sometimes they just get lost in and out of team play. That's what I'll say. They get lost in and out of team play. For minutes, they play really good team ball together. And then for some minutes, they start playing individual ball. Like they start rushing or panicking instead of just playing at a pace and a flow that they know they can be very successful at. On the other hand, Atlanta just has nothing to lose and they're just going out there having fun. I mean, you can tell.
What just let's just talk basketball without any specific team being part of the conversation. One thing I saw you saying over the weekend of WNBA ball, and I also, for anyone who hasn't yet watched your excellent one-on-one with Beth Burns, Beth Burns also made reference to this concept. Passing the ball is so much quicker than dribbling. That passing the ball is just such a more efficient way to get the shot you want. You don't need to be breaking down somebody one on one. Just move the rock, share it.
Yeah, yeah.
And so elaborate on that in terms of what you were seeing in the W and how that can translate to Lindsey Gottlieb, Jazzy Davidson, and USC while we're on the subject.
Oh man, I'm so excited to watch it. As I did my breakdown video of Jazzy, I just got so much more excited because wow, she's really one of those ones. That's all I'm gonna say about Jazzy Davidson right now. But when you talk about ball movement, when you pass, a pass is always faster than a dribble. A dribble takes time, right? You can pass the ball more efficiently and get it around the court faster than you could dribble. And I think what you see, a lot of these players that are coming up, especially in high school, just want to show out. So they're always doing the okey doke moves and over dribbling, thinking that's helping because they're trying to make space for themselves when really they're not. And I think when you watch the W, you really see the difference in high school basketball players to college to professionals, how professional ball players really get that, especially when they have coaches that emphasize systems that pass. And you see that with Minnesota a lot. I called it out last night. A lot of times when they come down the court and when they're not on transition, when they're running their offense, their system offense, unless it's Courtney, the point guard, or whoever is running the offense at the time, most of the time it's 2 to 3 dribbles pass, 2 to 3 dribbles pass. The faster they can get the ball out of their hand, they know that the person's going to be open on the opposite side of the court or inside in the key. So it's just beautiful to watch. I mean, not only is it good for the team, it's beautiful to watch. It's really, really fun to watch when teams are moving the ball so fast and just you see how effective and efficient these teams are when they move the ball. And I don't understand why that's such a hard concept for some players to realize that you cannot dribble faster than you can pass. You know what I mean? Or shift the defense. A defensive person can stay with a person all day long dribbling the ball. They can't move as quickly when you're passing the ball all the time. You just can't.
When I think of some of the great basketball teams of all time, I think of teams that were really excellent at just constant ball movement. The ball's rarely, if ever, hitting the floor. They're always moving it to someone else, everyone moving. And like if you're a defense, you can't keep up with that. If you're making like three or four crisp, efficient passes in a short period of time to players with spacing, movement, you're going to create a really good shot. Like some examples, 2014 San Antonio Spurs with Ginobili and Parker and Kawhi Leonard. Amazing ball movement. Like I remember that 2014 finals when they ran rings around the LeBron, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Miami Heat. They made a really good team look really uh, inadequate with their ball movement. Also, the
Yeah.
1986 Boston Celtics, that one year when Bill Walton, was able to, before his body fully gave out on him, he was able to mix with McHale and Bird and Parrish and Dennis Johnson. They were just, like it was just all passing, hardly any dribbling on that team to kind of build on this, because I know like we're talking ball and we love to do that with CC Clay here on this podcast, just to kind of build your concept about how passing is so much better than dribbling. One of the things from your Beth Burns podcast I'd like to unpack specifically, Beth Burns made a big deal about we want to get the ball to a side on defense, force the ball to the side, prevent the strong side entry pass, which is kind of just a central lane of attack. If you're thinking offensively, how does efficient passing, enable the offense to beat really good defense, to beat a defense that's, with Raya Marshall as the mad dog at the front of a press, trying to prevent your the passing lanes and being able to get the ball into a really favorable position near the basket. How can passing work against length, size, and get the ball in the right position? One perhaps another way to ask this question, Cece, is what's like the best 1-2 combination of passing? Not just the first pass, but the second pass in terms of just like a time-tested bread and butter way to break down good defense that has length, that has quickness, and that is trying to disrupt you. What are some concepts in terms of understanding the passing game in basketball?
I think the ultimate goal is to get the ball up the floor, especially if you're getting pressed, right? So, press breaks are you usually have somebody in the middle, somebody on the side. If you're going side to side, you're not moving the ball as fast, and if you can throw it ahead, you always have to know your open spots. So once you get into your offensive system, depending on what type of system you're running, I mean, pick and rolls, you can pass off the pick and roll all the time. If you're not playing on the wing, you can pass cross court all the time to get the defense shifting. The whole idea is to get the defense shifting from side to side so it creates an uneasiness and an uncomfortableness around the defense to get to your open spot. So I don't know if I answered your question because it was kind of a difficult question, but I think in a press, you always want to throw the ball not side to side. You always want to get it up the court because that's how you're going to beat the press. On another note, though, Beth Burns did say she wants when she's running the press, she'd rather have the team that she's defending to dribble the ball, right? Because you can't
Yes.
you force a person to dribble, then your defense is where it's supposed to be. You don't want them passing the ball ahead of you. So, uh, you know, as far as passing, there's always you want to move the ball ahead, just like in football.
Yeah. Well, let me follow up with this. Do you want your point guard does it matter? Let's put it that way. Does it matter if your point guard or if not necessarily the point guard, but the person who's kind of initiating your half court set of actions? Does it matter if that person is regularly in the middle third of the court or off to a side? Like, is that something as a coach or just understanding the X's and O's of basketball? Do you want your initiator on offense to be in the middle third of the court, or is it fine if that person's on the side and that the ball movement being involved in each possession is what matters, or is the deployment usually a determinant of how well you're able to move the ball?
Yeah, and I just think it depends on if you're running your transition offense, then the offense can start anywhere, or if you're starting in a setup, in your system, within your offensive system, because if you're starting within your offensive system, there's certain places and certain movement that the team has to be aware of. So uh, it just depends. It just depends where you are on the floor at the time, if you're going into an offensive system or if you're running off of transition who has the ball and where they start. But I will tell you one of the things that I noticed about college basketball that hopefully can improve on is they get caught up a lot of times. A lot of teams get caught up on not looking to the opposite side and staying on one side where that person on the opposite side can be wide open. They won't even look that way, right? And the whole object of moving the ball is to move it, change sides, go to the opposite side because especially when you have the defensive standing on the strong side, your weak side is always going to be open. So you want to reverse the ball. And I don't see a lot of teams reversing the ball or even looking to reverse the ball sometimes in an offensive system. And I think that when you watch WNBA ball or even the NBA, you see a lot of ball reversal, which creates open offense.
Well, let me just offer a follow up there. Is it essential to be able to throw a skip pass more regularly? Do you think that's an underutilized passing tactic? Just going right across the court, or do you think that ball reversal, that concept is better with make one pass and then another, make a two pass ball reversal, or is the skip pass not being used as much? How would you come down there?
Depends on the defense. That you got to be able to read the defense. I mean, they might have 2, 6, 7 players. You throw a skip pass, it's going to get intercepted all the time. Or when you're driving toward the bucket, that might be a good time to throw a skip pass because the defenders are coming out on you. But again, you have to understand and read the defense because a skip pass is good, but a skip pass is also dangerous. Those are the most intercepted balls defensively or disruptive passes defensively in a basketball game is a skip pass. So you just got to understand the defense and be able to read it right when you want to utilize that. Should they use it more? I don't know. It just depends what type of offensive system a team is running and the defenders that are on the floor.
Okay, one more question to conclude this passing game seminar with CC Clay. And we're not talking about USC football, we're talking about basketball. Just from your observation of the sport at both the pro and college level, what's the pass that players don't execute nearly as well as they should? Are we talking about a bounce pass, chest pass,
Pass,
lob
bounce
feed,
pass,
bounce pass,
bounce
really?
pass,
And you would think that like that should
bounce
be the most
pass.
common form of pass.
No,
So
bounce
talk a little
passes
more
are
about
probably
that.
no bounce passes are probably one of the most hardest passes that you can throw because you have to most of the time bounce passes you want to lead the player or you want to throw your bounce pass so it lands in the upper chest of the player that you're trying to get it to. So a bounce pass is where people may think it's easy. It's one of the most difficult passes to learn and to do. The other pass that I will talk about that's difficult is throwing a pass into the post because a post pass, and I did this on the my Jazzy Davidson breakdown. One of the passes that Jazzy Davidson threw was a post pass, and I have to commend her for it because she read the defense. I mean, a lot of people think when the post up and they have their defender on their back or on their hip, they can just throw the ball into the post and the post can do whatever they need to do because they're the post and they're big and they can figure it out. And that's not the case. I mean, posts get defended against too. And an effective pass into the post is going to be where you can lead them to be the most efficient around the basket. So if you're throwing a pass to the post and she's got a defender on her right hip and you throw it to her right hand, that's not an effective post pass. You have to make sure that you're throwing it to the opposite hand where she's going to have space to maneuver or to reverse or to turn and shoot or to turn and pass. So I would say that the post pass is one of the most difficult passes to make as well.
All right, let's get back to the W. So, talk a little bit about the dream. Let's talk a little bit more about the Phoenix Mercury, Cece. You mentioned no Alyssa Thomas, no Copper, no Mac. So really, we need to say more about how are they doing this. And one of the things that just jumps out at me, Cece, about the Mercury is like these are unheralded players. These are not superstars. These are not big names. These are not top 10 draft picks. I mean, did the Mercury's scouting department find these relative bargains on the market that no one else in the W managed to put together? Like just it seems though the scouting and development are really a few notches better of every non-Minnesota, non-New York Liberty team in the W right now.
Well, they got Satu and they got Alyssa, and so they got some really good players on their team, and then they have Sammy. Sammy Wiscombe play on the Phoenix Mercury. Hold on, let me pull up the Phoenix Mercury real quick and see who's on their roster. Um, I just think that what it is with the Phoenix Mercury is Alyssa Thomas and Satu bring that competitive spirit. You know what I mean? And then, with all due respect to Diana Taurasi, she's the goat of all goats for the WNBA. But she, I think, last year was kind of slowing that team down. And now you have Alyssa Thomas come in and Satu come in, and they're competitive and they're both really good. And you see that they just play with a fire in them now. Like they don't. That's a team when I watch them play, they just don't ever give up. They don't ever think they're going to lose the game. And that's what I like about the Phoenix Mercury.
What about, not you mentioned that Tarasi probably, demanded the ball and might have stunted the ball movement. Some obviously that's a theme of this podcast, but also, Brittney Griner was on last season's team, and one thing I remember you saying from a week ago or two was, that Marina Mabrey on the Connecticut Sun, a team that we're going to talk about in a little bit, like really good player, but not a number one. And Tina Charles is not prime Tina Charles. So it could be that what's happening with the Mercury is kind of what Connecticut is being slow to recognize, is that you might have some really big name players, Diana Taurasi, Brittney Griner, two of the best to ever do it, but at this stage in their respective careers, not necessarily the same roles or the same expectations as in their primes. And so that might have the roster construction for Phoenix with this younger lineup, not as much star power, but the blend, the fit of this roster without Brittney Griner and without Diana Taurasi so much better this season.
Well, yeah, and the thing that I'll say about Brittney is, I love Brittney Griner. I think she's a great player, but she's slow. You know what I mean? She's not as fast as some of the other posts in the league. And so when you lose a Brittany, but you gain an Alyssa Thomas, or they have and they have Kalani Brown, who they got from Dallas, who came over, and she's playing ball as well. But the person who surprised me the most on Phoenix is Catherine Westbeld, who's Maddie's sister from Notre Dame, and she's 30 years old, and this is her rookie year, and she's coming in, she's just balling. She's been playing international ball, and she's coming in, she's balling for Phoenix. So you're right. They got a bunch of no names. I was right. They do have Sammy Whitcomb, Alyssa Thomas, Catherine Westbeld, Kalani Brown. Um, I've never even heard of Musa Murantu. So they have players that I've never even heard of from overseas. She's from Nigeria. And then, yeah, Copper and Sabali. And then they have Lexi Held, who's been holding her own as well. And so she's from DePaul. She's a rookie. So
Yeah,
there's
so
some rookies that,
rookies are getting it done. Rookies that and
yeah,
we're not talking about Kiki Area Fen rookies, top 5, top 10 on the draft board. These are rookies that really flew in under the radar.
yeah, that Monique Akoa Makani, who gets playing time as well. She's a rookie from Cameroon. So, and I also think that you see these rookies that are playing today are just on another level than they were, 5, 10 years ago. They're coming in prepared. They're prepared. They're developing. They've been watching the game, so they're ready to compete, and they're not scared. So they lace up their tennis shoes just like the other players do, and that was said by New York Liberty's guard who used to play for Colorado. Guess who that is? You don't know, do you?
Jalen Sherrod,
Yeah,
I mean,
hey, yeah,
I mean,
you're
I
right.
I was thinking of it from the Colorado side. I didn't know that Sherrod was with the Liberty, but
Yeah, she's with the Liberty. And one of the first things that she said last year was when they asked her about being a rookie, one of the first things that she said was, I lace up my shoes just like they do. So, when you come in with confidence like that, even though she started last year, not this year, um, it's just something different for these rookies this year.
one thing that you mentioned is how the Mercury are getting people who played overseas for several years, and not a lot of experience in the W. Some of them are brand new to the W as rookies, some of them being older. We're not talking
Yeah.
about 22-year-old rookies exclusively. You mentioned Westbeld as 30 years old. That brings up a point. The U.S. had a very difficult path to the gold medal at the Olympics last year. Like, is the growth of the international game something the WNBA seems to be getting better at recognizing with pulling in talent? I know the Storm added, one of the high-profile players from the French team, which almost beat the U.S. in that gold medal game in Paris a year ago, but it seems to be going far, far beyond that. Looking at various international teams, players, rosters, this is really like if you're not doing this in the W, chances are you're really not getting those roster fits and the depth and the puzzle pieces that you need to be vigorously competitive at the top of that league.
Yeah, I think you see on Connecticut's team too. They have a couple international players or players from the U.S. that have been playing overseas, and I think part of that is because he was an international coach, so he brought some players with him. But I just think, yeah, as it continues to expand, you're going to see. I mean, the Valkyries have international players on their team. They didn't really fill out their roster with U.S. players. They filled out a lot of their roster with international players. So I think it might have to do with the cap. I don't know. I don't know what the pay structure is in the W or how international works. But I think there's a lot of talent overseas that people are chiming into, and you're going to see more of it because every international player wants to come over. If they're a national player, they know that the W is the best league, you know, ever. So they want to come play for the W.
All right, we said we were going to talk about this team, and now we're going to get to it. The Connecticut Sun, and Raya Marshall still being stapled to the back of the bench, and the Sun just ate a loss of close to 50 points against the New York Liberty on Sunday. Like they got embarrassed. Their season has been, very disappointing. Not necessarily unsurprising. That roster was completely torn apart, as we know five starters scattering, going to other places. So there was a definite suspicion that it would be bad. But, boy, when you eat a loss of close to 50 points, not a good look. And, we're waiting for Rhea Marshall to get more minutes and to get more meaningful minutes. But that first year coach just doesn't seem to be trusting her. And we just have to ask the question again. You're not a playoff contender. You're not. That's just the reality. You need to be getting the kids like Rhea Marshall minutes. Like this has to be a developmental season in Connecticut with the Sun. It's not about playing veterans 35 minutes a game. You need to be developing your roster for the future. And whether you're retaining players or using them as trade chips, either way, you need to be playing your younger players. What's going on with Connecticut? Like I fail to see a coherent, logical philosophy with the Connecticut Sun right now.
I'm trying to be politically correct when I talk about Connecticut because I don't want to get eaten alive on Twitter or get a bunch of DMs. But I, defensively, look, they're just so bad defensively. I mean, it is what it is. They're bad defensively. If they could just play defense, they might have a chance because offensively they're not bad. They're
Mhm.
really not that bad offensively. Defensively, I don't know if it's because the coach is international and if international basketball, if they play a lot of defense, or is it about scoring? Or I don't know. I don't follow international ball, so if somebody can chime in and let me know, educate me because I really need to know because this team defensively is the worst in the league. They're at the bottom in everything when it comes to defense. Um, and Morrow, who was drafted high, she's was everything at LSU as far as rebounding is concerned. She reminds me of Alyssa Peely. Alyssa Peely, her first year, Alyssa Peely in a really weird position because she doesn't have the height to play post, but she doesn't really have the guard skills to play guard. So what do you do with her? I think that's what's going on with Morrow right now is her height is starting to affect, her game, and they're gonna have to figure out where to position her at.
One thing you highlighted was that Rhea Marshall was a +9 in the limited minutes she had on the floor for Connecticut. And yes, they were garbage time mop up minutes in a game that Connecticut lost by more than 45. But nevertheless, like it's not as though anyone else had a +9 while on the floor. So, just and you mentioned
Yeah.
if you're at the
And Marie
bottom if
Lindsay
you're
had
at the
a
bottom of defensive metrics across the league, Rhea Marshall, she plays really, really, really good defense, and that's a lot of what you talked about with Beth Burns, just how Rhea embraced that mad dog role at the front of the USC press. But like anyway, like it just if Connecticut was a defensive juggernaut and was struggling to score, Rhea Marshall being stapled to the bench would make total sense. Like
yeah,
we're not talking about this in a flat absolutist kind of way. It's Rhea Marshall can actually solve the specific problems that are going on with the
yeah.
Sun, and she's still not getting those extended minutes.
My thing is with that whole scenario is that, if they're having conversations with Rhea about why she's not playing or they see her in a developmental role, that's one thing. But you got to, I don't want Rhea to lose confidence when she gets out there on the floor because she's getting scrappy minutes or whatever. I mean, they were down by 50 points in the third quarter,
Yep.
and they still waited to the last 8 minutes of the game to put Raya in. Why? Who does that benefit? It doesn't benefit Raya. It's certainly not benefiting Connecticut Sun. But yeah, they went out and got Jaylen Brown and they released Robin Parks. So at least they didn't release Rhea. So that's something. Um, you know, they got Jaylen Brown, and I'm just curious as to what role they think Jaylen Brown's going to fill because Jaylen Brown, she was really good last year preseason, really good. She came from overseas, hadn't played in the WNBA, I think since 2020, was playing overseas and came and got picked up by Dallas, had a really good preseason, then got a concussion and then got a fractured nose. And when she came back from that, she got ill and she could never get back into the swing of things. And then she comes over to, I think she came over to Indiana. She got picked up by Indiana this year and then released. And now she got picked up by Connecticut. So if they're looking for a guard, I mean, why not bring in Caitlin Chen? Caitlin Chen, you need more shooting. You need better defense. Maybe because Jaylen Brown's bigger, maybe they think they need a bigger guard. I don't understand. I, I don't understand. We'll talk about Washington in a minute too, but who I think they should go get. But uh, Connecticut, I don't know what to say about Connecticut anymore. I'm not one to really talk about coaching, and I don't want to talk about coaching because I don't know what his philosophy is. Um, at the end of the day, the onus is on the players to play defense if they want to win games. And like I said before, I think the front office is learning that the Marina Mabrey, Tina Charles flex that they thought it was going to be isn't that. It's just not. So,
And I
and,
mean,
and
go ahead.
Connecticut's up for sale. Connecticut's up for sale.
Yeah,
So
good, really important point.
yeah, and that's a whole nother issue. Who wants to buy Connecticut and what are they going to do, when they do buy it and where are they going to go? Because they're talking about moving out of Connecticut. So that's a whole nother scenario that plays into this. So the whole Connecticut situation is kind of out of sorts right now. And I don't think everybody's on the same page of where they want to go, where they are now, and where they need to be. So just interesting. But as far as Ray is concerned, I feel bad for my girl because they need to be utilizing her more and they're not. And again, part of that is offensively, Rhea wasn't that good, but you can develop her offense. Her
Yeah.
defense can help you right now.
Yep. And I just the point just could not be clearer. If a team is struggling on defense, you use your good defensive player. If you're struggling on offense, okay, different calculus, different calculus. So we're waiting to see the Sun get smart and realize that, hey, you have this player who can really help your defense, Raya Marshall. All right, you wanted to talk about Washington. Let's talk about Washington. So they
Washington's on my mind.
beat the Indiana Fever, and of course, Caitlin Clark out. But like a good professional team is going to take advantage of an opponent when it's shorthanded. Mystics did that. They look solid. I think the Mystics playing better than preseason expectations so far, and Kiki Iriafen very much part of the good work, the good things that the Mystics are doing so far this season.
Yeah, who would have thought that Kiki, when Aaliyah Edwards and Shakira Austin would be healthy, that Kiki would still be starting over them, right? And she's coming in and she's starting and she's playing, more minutes than Shakira and Aaliyah Edwards. And she's out there and she's just balling. She's doing really, really good. And they've only lost two bad games to New York as far as point spread is concerned. But every other game that they've lost has been by a slim margin. They have to learn how to close out games. That's their one downfall is they have to learn, and that's just a young mistake. They have to learn how to close out games, but I still think they need another guard to play alongside Brittney Sykes. And Sutton, to me, is just not that guard. She's not efficient in the 3 point, and that's just like you said, the last conversation we had, Georgia Amore was the one that was going to
Yes.
effectively shoot the 3 point shot. So you know, I think that's somebody that they really need to look at that I think that would really help the team, especially with the style of play that they have, is Harmony Turner out of Harvard. If they go get Harmony Turner out of Harvard, they'd be really good.
Yeah, I
Are you
mean,
familiar with Harmony Turner?
I am not intimately familiar with Harmony Turner, but I will make the point that, you know, the WNBA season is 40 games. So that's half the length of the NBA season. We're coming up on the 10 game mark. That's the quarter mile, 25% of the way through the season. We're going to get to a point not that far off, Cece, where teams have to make decisions. Are we buying? Are we selling? Are we going for it? Or are we punting and rebuilding? And like the Connecticut Sun, clearly in the rebuild category. Like that's not a hard call. It's more interesting in the middle of the pack of the WNBA. So teams such as the Mystics are going to have some interesting choices. Do you want to accumulate, or do we want to, stand pat, or maybe even sell? In terms of our long-term positioning. So just in terms of when we talk about adding pieces, that's kind of part of the bigger picture. Teams are going to have to make some interesting trade or acquire decisions in the not too distant future.
So Harmony Turner was the most valuable player at Harvard. She was really good. Who else played at Harvard?
Yeah,
Who
Mackenzie
else?
Porter.
Oh,
Yeah,
just testing your knowledge.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
and just so you know, Harmony, I got her stats up right here. 22.5 points per game at Harvard, and she was well known for her defense. But the thing about her, she shot 36% from the three-point line, and she averaged 7 3-pointers a game. She can create her own offense. She understands spacing very well. And I just think that Washington, she would be a really good fit alongside Brittany Sykes in the offense that they run. And she'd be able to open the floor with her 3-point shooting. She can help create, do pick and rolls with Kiki. She's just a perfect fit for that squad. Why nobody's looking at Harmony, I don't know. Because she came from a mid-major. Come on, there's so many players in the W right now that came from non-Power Five schools. You got to stop looking at girls like that and just look at how they play ball,
Well, and
or young women.
that really ties things together, in that it's you're not just going to win championships with big name players. Now, obviously, you need, your aircraft carrier and you need your number two to be elite. But like with what the Phoenix Mercury are doing, like you need to find those players in the bargain bin, the players
Role
that are
players,
off the
right?
radar, right?
It's the same thing as in college. You have your, one or two airline jet airline jets, and then you have your little, two-seaters that help you win the games. That was such a bad analogy, but you know what I mean. That help you win the games. The role players have to understand how important they are to winning championships, and it can't be all about I want to be the one all the time. You know.
That's right. Like you have your Shaq, you have your Kobe, but you need your Robert Ory, you need your Derek Fisher, you need your Rick Fox. You need those glue guys just as much as you need the stars. So,
Look at Indiana. Look at Indiana Pacers. I mean, and Oklahoma. I mean, look at them.
yes, yes,
That's a perfect example of building
right.
a roster that understands how to win games. And both those teams play deep. I think those are the only two teams in the NBA that play defense.
And here they are.
Yep. And here
Not
they
a
are. Yeah.
coincidence. But
Yeah.
like especially with I mean both teams are good examples of this, but really Oklahoma City get 9 to 10 really hungry guys. You run them in and out, and depth really was the separator for Oklahoma City relative to Denver. Denver had the best player on the court, the Joker, but
Mhm.
that didn't win the series because Denver did not build out its roster 1 through 10 the way Sam Presti and Oklahoma City did. So really on point to all the things that you've been saying in the show. You need
Hey,
depth, you need role players, you need puzzle pieces, you need combinations. It can't just be one or two people.
that's why you see Las Vegas Aces. I mean, they're still a great team. I just really and I'm sticking by it. They might change in the near future, but I really don't see them even making the final this year. They just don't have the depth. And Becky, she wants to coach like that. She wants to coach five strong players and maybe have two come off the bench that are strong, but they don't even have really two strong players that are coming off the bench right now. And Drew Lloyd, you know, that's a whole nother conversation. Drew Lloyd is not picking up where they thought she would, where Kelsey Plum, left.
Mhm.
Julie
Mhm.
has not been efficient. She hasn't been good, but
Well,
is she?
you wanted to talk about the Dallas Wings. Let's do that.
Yeah.
That's the one team we plan to talk about, off the air before the show began that we haven't gotten to yet. So let's do Dallas.
Well, Paige Beckers is playing good. I think she's got 6 games where she's got 30 assists or 30 rebounds or something like that. She's doing really good. She's doing what she needs to be doing. You know, um, Dallas they're a funny one. You got to start thinking. To me, it's not coaching. Now, Chris is young, and they've been through multiple coaches with Arike, and the best year they had was last year, but they haven't been able to put it together. Now, is it Arike? Is it the coach? Is it management? Is it a combination of both? I don't know, but something's got to give because Arike, as good as she is, I mean, to me, her IQ isn't as strong as it should be. She's been in the league long enough. She should know when to take shots, when not to take shots, where to pass the ball, where not to pass the ball, when she should be that go-to player, when she should let somebody else take the shot. And she just doesn't do that. She just doesn't do that. So yeah, you got to think, is it the coach or is it Arike?
Okay, well, one of the themes we've been drilling deep on is it can't just be one person. It can't just be a star. You need a whole roster. To me, it seems as though they don't. I mean, Enrique isn't might not be the as smart or as complete an aircraft carrier, a big number one who takes on the workload the way Caitlin Clark does for the Fever or Fee Collier does for the Lynx, or the way Ionescu and Stewie do for the Liberty. Enrique is not in that same class. We would all agree, but like they need pieces. So Enrique might be the constant, but ha do you think that the
No,
Dallas
no, they
Wings
have
have given
pieces.
her a sufficient level of help
Yes,
regardless of the coaching piece?
yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, she's
So with
had
Paige,
superstar. Look, you need to go read my Substack. She's had players
okay.
alongside of her, to help her, from Marina, from Natasha Howard, from Satu Sabali. She's had phenomenal players playing Kalani Brown, to play alongside of her. Now she has Dejanay Carrington. She has Nalissa Smith. She has players, Maddie Segrest. She has players around her that can play. I don't know what more you have to do, to get Arike to understand that she does have a team around her. Dejanay Carrington is underrated in my opinion. Melissa Smith needs to just be put in the right positions to do what she can do effectively for that team. And then you have Paige Beckers coming in who can throw you the rock, or score, or do what she needs to do. But every year, if you go look at the history and the rosters, you guys go read my Substack. If you go
Yeah.
look at the
We're gonna
history
promote that in a bit,
and the
but yeah.
rosters,
So new
you
Substack
know,
piece on the Dallas Wings that you want to
yeah,
read.
yeah. Well, it's asking, is it, can Chris Coklanes bring out, what other coaches haven't been able to in Enrique, and getting her to understand how to be more efficient around other players, so. Yeah, I don't know. That's a toss up for me. I mean, they got a great player in Paige. Paige is playing well right now. She's doing well, and they still. I don't get it. I don't know what more you have to do.
I guess the main follow-up with the Dallas Wings is, we saw the Indiana Fever really, really struggle first 10, 12 games of last season, but then as we got closer to 4th of July, midsummer, they began to all figure it out. Should we expect the Wings to begin to figure it out mid to late June and for it to all come together, and kind of what's attached to that, Cece, is if they don't, like, is that kind of like a final verdict on Enrique and also the new coaching staff there?
I mean, I'm going to be completely honest. I don't know because I just Indiana was a whole different scenario last year. I think because not only just because of Caitlin, but because of all the hoopla that was involved with Caitlin. Paige is not getting all the the backdraft and all that kind of stuff, I will tell you, Indiana is in the same position this year as they were last year with a new coach who's supposed to be phenomenal. So, even though Caitlin's hurt, in my opinion, they have enough players on their team that they should be winning games without Caitlin. They got superstars on that team, that they brought in to build around Caitlin and Aaliyah Boston. But that's a whole nother subject. But I just will say, for all those naysayers that were so, bad on Christy Sides, and not saying that she wasn't the best coach that Indiana could got, they're in the same position now that they were in last year as far as records are concerned. So go figure. As far as Dallas, I don't know. I just look at the past. I'm looking at history, and I'm looking what has happened in the history of this franchise from executive management team to play to roster formation to coaches, and something has to be done um, in the back office of that program. And to really understand the player mentality that they have now, the players that they have on that roster now, and the players that they've had in the past, because it can't be the coach every time. And I'm just going to leave it at that. It can't always be the coach when it's the same history year after year after year of what's going on. It just can't be the coach.
All right, so you have that article on the Dallas Wings at your Substack. So you have that to promote and share. What else do you have going on at your Substack and also on your USC YouTube women's basketball channel?
Yeah, I got a couple stories written for Substack. I'm not sure which one I'm going to let go of this week, but that should be coming tomorrow or Wednesday. Um, if you haven't watched it already, I did do a film breakdown about Jazzy Davidson. And I know we've been going for a while now, but look, for those of you who have just been going on hearsay regarding Jazzy Davidson and concerned about, what's going to happen with USC next year, man, go watch that YouTube video. Not just because, but yo, let me tell you, when I started doing the research on this kid, on this young woman, I was blown away. Like, she's so smooth, man. She's so smooth and she's so good. And one of the things that I talked about in the video was, you know, she's a little bit taller than Juju. She's supposed to be 6'2", Juju 6'2", but from what I'm hearing, she's a little bit taller than Juju. But her wingspan is like a 6'6". So, you bring that in with all the athleticism that Lindsay brought in this year and what we have already, man, people are going to be surprised. So those analysts that rated us outside of number 25, that's okay. We'll take that. We'll take that because I think that they haven't done their due diligence in really watching Jazzy Davidson play and how smart she is as a basketball player, how good she can pass the ball, how good she can read defenses, how good her pace of play is. I mean, you thought Juju was good, and I'm not saying that Juju is the best player in high school and in college right now. But man, Jazzy Davidson didn't get moved up to number one for nothing. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So that's all I'm gonna say about Jazzy Davidson.
Hey, when you have a first name of Jazzy and Cece Clay says you're smooth, well, we are looking forward to a lot of smooth jazz
Yeah, yeah.
from
That's why
USC.
her name stuck too. That her nickname Jazzy stuck because of how smooth she is
Well,
as a player.
isn't that just a perfect fit? One other thing, I've been pulling from your Beth Burns conversation because there's so many good nuggets. I'm going to be publishing excerpts from that all summer at Trojans Wire.
Beth
Um,
Burns, if you're watching, I hope you heard
yeah,
that. You're famous with Matt. He loves
yeah.
your stuff.
We're gonna let this USC baseball season conclude, but after baseball's done, yeah, we're gonna be a lot of Beth Burns. It's gonna be the summer of Beth at Trojans Wire. But one of the things I picked up from that conversation, tons of things, but one thing in particular, the new transfer coming in from Auburn, she called her a baby Raya. So like,
Yeah,
that gets me really excited that there's going to be another
Kia
mad
Milton.
dog at the front of the press with just great instincts, hunger, tenacity, length.
I'm
Like
telling you, this might
Beth
be
Burns
one of
getting into
the.
her mad scientist laboratory on defense. I cannot wait.
I'm telling you, this might be one of the best defensive teams that we have under the Lindsey Gottlieb era. I really believe that. Just because every player that they got from the portal and players on the team now and Jazzy Davidson love to play defense and are athletic and are fast and are disruptors. So that's what I'm saying. I can't wait to see I can't wait to see what they do offensively because I think they're going to run a whole different system because of how fast they are. And I can't wait to see who runs the offense because there are multiple players that can run the offense now, and I don't know, it's exciting to watch. But anyways,
Beth also said they're all dogs. Like they all get after it. It
all
just,
dogs, man.
you know,
They're all
that's
dogs.
the
So
only way to go about it.
Mendez from Washington State, another athletic person who I think Beth said that she's a 3, but we're going to have her at a 4, I think. I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see how next year's team plays out. And we just got scheduled for North Carolina State. So, our preseason is North Carolina State, Notre Dame, UConn, and South Carolina. I mean, 4 big games at the start of the season. So we better be ready. Those girls better come in ready to work this summer. That's all I want to say. One other
Absolutely.
thing I want to mention, podcasts. Forgot to mention this. So you guys are aware Cameo. Cameo does some spots on our podcast every once in a while. Cameo and I have a podcast coming out starting Friday, but we've been talking and we decided to put another podcast under the Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball umbrella. So we'll have this one, Trojans Wire, and Let's Talk USC Women's Basketball, which is me sometimes and me and a guest sometimes. And then Cameo and I will start a podcast, start Truth in the Trenches. And what that's going to be about is talking about stuff that a lot of people don't want to talk about because they're afraid to. And the first episode comes out Friday, and we're talking about parents' involvement in college basketball, politics. We talk about coaches, old school versus new school, and why coaches have to coach differently in today's world. We talk about players, fundamentals versus just showing off. So some very touchy subjects, and that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be crossing the line a little bit and bringing truth to you guys about how we feel about certain things and truth that's just the truth, that people don't want to talk about.
So a lot of it about just kind of the innards of the basketball industry, but also coaching the game. So kind of the
It could be
industry, the
different.
game.
It could be different topics.
Uh-huh.
One week it could be, players' mentality.
Hmm.
Another subject could be, you know, when players get mad because they're sitting on the bench. Why are they sitting on the bench? We're going to talk about it, on the real side. This is why you're sitting on the bench and what you need to do to fix it and why some players can handle it and some players can't. So just a lot of good stuff coming. And that podcast is going to be bi-weekly. So look forward to that. And then you and I are starting our Big Ten countdown next week.
Yep, looking at our Big Ten off-season series. So yeah, we're not taking a break in the off-season. You can tell there's a lot of different projects going. Some well underway, some about to begin. So you want to stay focused on CC Clay's YouTube page, her USC YouTube women's basketball channel. Let's talk USC women's basketball. One-on-one interviews with big-time figures such as Beth Burns, such as Lindsay Gottlieb, but also Truth in the Trenches with Cameo Williams of Gems in the Gym, and then of course our Trojans Wire podcast right here. Cece, any other final words before we close up shop?
That sounds like so much. I don't know how I'm going to be able to get all that stuff done, but
And your
and work my
Substack,
regular job
and your
and,
Substack.
and my regular job, which is driving me crazy right now. So yeah, so but I love it. So we'll just do what we can do.
We love talking ball here on the Trojans Wire podcast. So for Cece Clay, hardest working woman in basketball podcasting right now, this is Matt Zemek. Thanks again for listening. We will see you next time.
Fight on.